Hello and welcome, this is Alchemist X, and today I'll be going over the content and the banners for the week of July 13th through the 20th. And I wanted to talk about the units that are in focus this week. So that is going to be Matia, Claybell, and Irene. They all have summer/swimsuit mementos. Matia's is brand new. It is very, very good. It's got a snowball with the VCR. It's got some good modifiers to help with PvP as far as strong versus strike, modified defense versus humans. A ton of HP on the VCR too. Just overall things that she would want, whether you've got a Gate 6 Matia who's ready for a second memento, or you don't have either of her mementos, that summer memento could be a very, very good choice for her. And I think that she is definitely a unit worth getting, a unit worth raising, and a unit worth using. Now, whether you wanted to get her from her 5-step unlimited type banner, that's a whole other question, because while I do think she's absolutely excellent to have, that's a pretty high price tag to get. If you don't want to do that, you could try to snag her from just a limited unit catch-all banner and just hope for some good RNG, or maybe try to guarantee her a holiday/anniversary type event, because she's an old enough unit that being able to get her for free is not an outlandish idea. I can think of at least one opportunity around when I first started playing, and I think there's maybe been more than that. So overall, don't feel pressured to spend on that if you don't want to, but she's definitely a worthwhile unit to have. Claybell is in a very similar camp of being an absolutely excellent unit. I think you could make a slightly better argument for going the distance on a 5-step unlimited for Claybell, because dragons don't show up in nearly as many types of banners as just the regular limited type units do. So that makes her a little bit harder to get. She's also just something of a universal support unit for light element. So, I mean, ideally you would run her in a light magic team, but it really doesn't have to be. Everyone else can be physical, and she can still provide a ton of support via her chrono abilities, the ability to stave off debuffs. She's got an instant cast quicken, just a jumping overclock that's an AoE. Overall, just a pretty excellent kit. You really can't go wrong with Claybell. And then if you wanted to go for her swimsuit memento, that addresses one of her biggest flaws, which is the cast time in her kit. So definitely a unit I would recommend. And then finally we get to Irene, who I can more comfortably universally recommend, given that there is a banner available this week where you can get her for a much, much lower cost than either Matia or Claybell. And I would give an extra recommendation to getting Irene if you don't have any flying units. So if you haven't had any good luck with the Phantom of the Kill stuff, because that's where a majority of the flying units come. There's also Nikaya, other units here and there, but having one of them is really good, because that can allow you to basically circumvent height restrictions, which can definitely help in content, especially if that content was designed before flying units existed. You might have an easier time. She's a ranged unit too, so she can really take advantage of height if she's able to get there. Although she doesn't have the same level of range that other missile type units would have, but she's very mobile, and the extra turns can really, really help. She can also ignore shields with one of her attacks. She's got kind of a weird conditional damage, where she can do damage based on the enemies, whether their jump has been restricted or not, and then one of her moves lowers jump. So that's a little bit weirdly specialized, but on the plus side, I can't imagine a ton of enemies are going to be resistant to that. So overall, she is a really nice unit to have. And then if you went for her summer memento, you could get the ability to... Actually, hopefully I'm not misspeaking and referring to her regular VCR, because right now my Irene is pre-Gate 6, so I only have the summer memento on her. But she has a master ability that lets her shoot down jumpers, just adding to her utility even more. So yeah, next up, before jumping into the banners, I want to take a look at the content, because there's a lot of things rerunning this week, and some things are things that Global never touched. Others are things that we haven't seen in a long, long time. So there's a bunch of summer events, so remembering who corresponds to what's a coin event, what's not, etc. I'll just do a quick rundown of all of that, just to make sure that if a character that you care about is in a state where you could upgrade them, that you get to take the opportunity to do that. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into that. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the events tab. We'll start with the box event. So this is the event that introduced Irene. Overall, it's mostly just going to be shards of Bashini and Irene, and then a relief at the very end. The boss is going to be heavily skewed towards M-Attack scaling missile because you really can't get near him, otherwise you'll get an insane level of agility debuff, so definitely want to stay away. If you have debuff resistance, you can get around the M-Attack scaling. I was able to kill him with Louis, Carnate, Nimble, etc. for autoing the hard boss. So definitely, as long as you have somebody like Inaku or Claybell or Legacy Ouroboros, anybody that can, or like Phrase with the Uzuma VCR, anybody who can do debuff res, you can pretty much get around that. So next, let's take a look at the main event. So Matia's Swimsuit event is not going to correspond to any job plus or class change, but there is a unique gear that you can get. It'll be all attack up, but then also missile and magic res down, but potentially could be useful for somebody who's tanky enough to not care that much, or maybe has native resistance to those damage types, so they kind of net zero or possibly even net positive. If you have Matia, you can get 25 shards of her for free, so definitely overall pretty good. Then we get to Rainbow Summer, now that we're in the reruns. Rainbow Summer doesn't correspond to a job plus at all, but the coin shop's good. Generally speaking, coin shops will always be a good source of swords, gear rods, job enchant coins, skip tickets, leafs, etc. The captain style is going to correspond to Nefertiti's job plus. So what does that say? Troubleshooting? That one is going to be Albea's, but it also gives the swimsuit memento for Noah. Now, hopefully, either during Valentine's Day or during the giant Golden Week rerun-a-thon, you got Noah's job plus from that, because that's a Valentine's event. So raising her can be kind of a pain if you're not prepared, just because you have to get her actual job change from Valentine's, then grab her memento from Summer. But if you can do it, Noah is a very, very nice unit to have, just because of her shield, AoE shield reactive that she can do. When you combine her with somebody like Vettel, it can be very, very helpful. Plus, you've got the synergy of Emma and Pamela for that kind of Fire Lustberg trio. This one with the octopus is just a hell level. Then below that is Shenmei's Job Plus event. You can also get a free memento that's kind of for that whole Greed Pirate squad. And those are all of the coin events. So all of those events will have in common that you farm the levels for coins and then buy whatever with them. Everything below is going to be more milestone driven and or random drops driven. So this one is going to be Dorothy's Job Plus. She could be good if you need to disable some slash or strike. Definitely it's an older event, so it'll be more, your mileage may vary on how useful that is, because as far as shutting down slash, I think Vettel's probably overall an easier choice to get more utility out of it, but you do get a free memento and a free swimsuit skin for Dorothy, so if she's a unit you really like, then that's all positive. Then we got Hisham. This one's not really swimsuit related, but he is a good support unit. He can veil, he can put down panels that will give you 20 jewels and lightly boost either P attack or M attack. If you're real hard up for support on light, he's a good free to play option, especially if you got all the shards of him when his other event was rerunning, but this is going to be a drops based. Then we've got Gormalaz's event for Job Plus, and then Dilga's event for Job Plus. This should all be really easy because it's super ancient. And then finally, there is just another hell level where you just fight a bunch of dudes and get some stuff and a title as a reward. So definitely doesn't need to be a huge priority compared to all of the job pluses. So hopefully that clears it up, because that's a lot of stuff, and some characters appear on the picture of certain events, but they don't actually correspond to the job plus. And if you're not able to read katakana for people's names in the coin shops, that can be an extra layer of difficulty. But hopefully the pictures in the job equipment pieces are enough of a context clue for that. But with all of this out of the way now, I know it's a long video, let's go ahead and take a look at the banners. And here we are. So first up is the main event, the Matia Swimsuit banner. So if you have to have this memento and you're willing to go to step 9, get that selector, you could do a lot worse just because Claybell and Irene have their summer mementos on here too. And then Shenmei, whether that's a bonus or a detriment, depends on how much you like or use Shenmei. But you could certainly do a lot worse. I always like it when it's all limited for the featureds. Nothing really diluting the pool. The only downside is that if you have really bad luck, it's really expensive. Now, the next two banners are pretty similar in format, 9-step with a selector at the end. However, the key difference here is that for these two, any 5-star that you pull is going to be a featured unit, so that's pretty nice. If you had to pick one of these, I would definitely say the one that has Vi's, Mira's, Kaya's. I think more units are going to benefit from those mementos in particular relative to the other one, and the pool is also a little bit smaller. We'll just glide past these paid banners right to Matia herself. So if you really want to get her, then this is how you would do it right now. However, it is, as I mentioned in the intro, very expensive. But on the plus side, you would get a lot of coins to buy more shards of her. So at least that's something to help mitigate the bad luck if you decide that you had to go that path. Same thing with Claybell. She's slightly more rare than Matia, being a dragon unit, but otherwise everything I said applies. And then her original memento and Matia's original memento are running together as a 9-step with a selector. Honestly, if you're trying to go from 0 to 100 and you have enough gems and you're just not worried about it, then doing both of them is not a bad idea. But I don't think that's going to describe most people. Most people's gems are going to be way more scarce than that to do like 40k worth of summons just for mementos. That's a pretty steep asking price. That being said, if you only pick one, I would go for the summer ones. Then we get to a pretty remarkable banner that can really help you out, especially if you don't have Irene, especially if you don't have any flying units. I mentioned this briefly in the intro, but this banner will give you Irene guaranteed on step 5. If you go all the way, you can get enough to fully enlighten her. And then the final step will also give you her normal pool memento. Now, how far do you want to go? It's going to depend on how much gems you're willing to spend, but it's definitely a pretty good value for a 9-step. And even if you only go to step 5, still pretty great if you don't have Irene. And just if you do not have any flying units, then I recommend doing this, assuming that it's not going to mess up any of your future gem spending plans. Then we have the last of the things that we're debuting this week is voucher banners. So, they show up here and there. Not too much to say about them. As far as the value of what you can get in the shop with the vouchers, I think in general, the normal pool mementos, if you still don't have a lot of them and don't have most of them max limit broken, that's good value. Getting flash and sweep rune sets for cheap. Now they won't be max stat, but if you were trying to get units or mementos anyway, because they have a guaranteed on each step, and you can get some rune sets out of it too, not a bad way to go. And then finally, for 6 vouchers, you can get a 375 ticket. It's not a great value in and of itself, but it can be nice to have if you want to just make sure that a character that when they release, you can raise them right away. If you're just perpetually short on shards and you're not sure you're going to have enough time to raise enough of them before they come out. I, of course, am in this case talking about Phineas. I don't know what element he's going to be. I'm assuming light, but I don't know for sure. So I have one of those 375 tickets tucked away just for that occasion. Otherwise, Ananji and Nidhogg banners are around for another few days. However, Taga is no longer in effect, so it is noticeably more expensive. And then other than that, that is about it for the banners. So if you are summoning this week, I wish you good luck, and I will see you all next time.